Hi guys, I'm Kasha. Welcome to the channel and welcome as always to our coffee times to discuss horror and books. And today I'm starting a new series on my channel. I'm going to start reviewing books for you guys. So here is episode 1, How to Sell a Haunted House.
It's coffee time.
So one of my goals for 2023 was to start doing some book reviews. Now I thought about it and I think it's best if I do reviews of books that are coming out in 2023 so that you guys have a little bit more of information on new releases, and maybe I will also add some book reviews of books that I truly love, like, you know, like 4 to 5 star ratings, because I feel like for those probably I have a lot more to say about. These videos are going to be as spoiler free as possible, which means I'm not going to talk about any plot twists and turns, any like major information. I'm not going to talk about any endings or anything that would ruin and spoil the reading experience for you. But I am going to talk about topics and things that come up during the book. But I'm gonna leave out like everything that comes towards the end, just to protect ourselves from spoilers. My goal with these videos, especially for the 2023 releases, is that people that are unsure about a book can come here and find a little bit more in-depth information about the book, a little bit more than just a synopsis, and then they can decide if they want to purchase the book or not, if it's interesting enough, if it's something that they would like. And also maybe you learn about certain trigger warnings or things that currently is better if you just don't read about. And today we're gonna start with a book that I truly enjoyed, and that is How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix, that just came out. To make things easier for you, I have divided these also in little chapters, so that you can easily jump from one chapter to the next if you're interested only in a specific certain thing about the book. Similar to what I do with my movie reviews, my horror movie reviews on my other channel. So I have divided this into sections, and now let's start. Grady Hendrix has finally embraced a subgenre of horror, and that is the one of the haunted houses. And not only are we going to have here a house that could potentially be haunted, but we're also following the story of 2 siblings. So you're going to learn how your past and your family also could potentially haunt you. So when Louise found out that her parents had passed, she had a lot of trouble adjusting. Now the 2 people that, you know, had been present throughout all her life, her parents, are suddenly gone. And on top of that, she has to return back to the family home and see and deal with her brother, whom she never really had a really good relationship with. And on top of that, she has to deal also with the house and everything that belonged to her parents, including the creepy doll collection that her mother had. The story is centered around our 2 siblings, Louise and Mark. The story is told from Louise's perspective, and from the very beginning, when they were younger, they never really had the best relationship, brother-sister relationship, and throughout the years the relationship only got more estranged. After the sudden loss of their parents in a car crash, so they lost both of their parents at the same time, both siblings have to deal with this huge loss, and on top of that they have to deal with the state and everything that their parents have left them in their will. What helped a lot in the book to make this family and this relationship a lot more alive and believable was the introduction of other members of the family, like certain aunts and cousins, like Aunt Honey. When Louise was 34, she got pregnant, and especially after that, the relationship with her parents kind of cooled down a little bit, and now she is raising her daughter basically by herself. Her daughter Poppy, she is 5 years old. So when Louise gets the call to tell her that her parents have sadly passed away, her world just comes tumbling down, and she doesn't really know how to approach the situation. And of course, she's really scared to go back home and face not only the family house, now empty, but also Mark, her brother. We're going to talk now about the themes that are included in the book, and one of the first ones was family relationships. We have here a relationship between siblings that is not the best relationship, and it's kind of letting you know that not all families have these happy relationships. Not all siblings love each other to death. Some of them just don't really have the best relationship, and in most cases there is some kind of past trauma or past events that have not been resolved or processed. We also see some regret about things that happened in the past, and you know, our characters are kind of trying to figure out if things can still be fixed in the present. Louise still feels like she had to fight for everything that she has, and Mark got always everything handed to him, and that is part of why her relationship with him was never good. Another big topic in the book is obviously grief, because our siblings are experiencing a huge loss, and it is really interesting because we all know that everybody processes and goes through grief in very different ways, in very unique ways, and I love that the siblings, they each have their own way on how to kind of process the situation, deal with it, and move on. They're back to their childhood home, so you might think that, you know, they're back to something that is familiar, something that has stayed the same through the years, but at the same time everything has changed. Mark wants to just get rid of the house as soon as possible, get rid of everything that reminds him of his parents. He wants to sell the house quickly, and Louise needs a little bit more time for processing and deciding what to do. I really love to see how the author gave us both perspectives, and it's not like one is right and one is wrong. We all just deal with things in a different way, so you might agree with what Mark wants to do or what Louise wants to do, but at the end of the day, none of those things are wrong. It's just we process things in a very different way. Mark is more the colder person, the person that needs to detach himself from what happened, and so his process is, I need to get rid of all the belongings so that I can move on and I don't have those constant reminders of my parents. And then Louise, she has a more of a sentimental attachment to things, and she needs a little bit more time to process and to let go, and both options are perfectly fine. And in grief, you know, we all handle it, like I said, completely differently, and there is no right or wrongs here. Another huge topic in the book is, of course, death itself, because one of the questions that is going to come up is, how do you explain a 5-year-old that death exists, that her grandparents are gone? And this really kind of touched me because when I was 5, my grandfather died, and I was really attached to my grandparents because both my parents were still working, so I did spend a lot of time with my grandparents after kindergarten. And I remember the exact morning, I remember exactly what happened. My mom woke me up in the middle of the night. She started dressing me up. I didn't know what was going on. I asked her and she told me that grandpa had passed away, and I didn't really understand what was going on, but I saw my mom so sad that I started crying myself. And it takes a while to process when you're so young, but I was confronted with death a couple of times when I was 5 to 6 years old, so I feel like from an early age I kind of already got that shock of reality. And I also found really interesting in the book that the author does mention that a lot of families avoid the topic of death. Nobody really wants to talk about it. It's kind of a taboo thing, and it's really interesting because in other cultures death is accepted as something that it is extremely natural and normal, which sadly it is. And other countries it's like a taboo. You don't want to talk about it because, you know, it's sad. It's not a nice thing to talk about. But, you know, some people find comfort talking about it and making it something more, you know, normal, because it is at the end of the day. So I thought that was a really interesting thing, because not talking about it with your kids might also not prepare them in the future. I'm not saying you have to tell them everything when they're really small and just shock them and scar them for life, but I do feel like talking about it is a good thing. Something else that is going to be discussed in the book is ghosts, and if you believe in ghosts as supernatural entities, or if you're someone that are looking for some rational explanations to some supernatural things that might happen around you. So this discussion also comes up in the book. If you have read other Grady Hendrix books, I feel like you kind of already get the gist of his writing style. And even though this book, I feel like so far has been his more personal, more serious book, at least it deals with heavier topics than his other books, which were more cheesy and fun and 80s, and this one is a little bit more kind of grounded in reality, with heavy topics, but he still managed to sneak in some humor here and there. One thing about the book that I really enjoyed is that the chapters were divided in sections and they had names according to the different stages of grief. So I really loved that detail, and I thought it was a great choice. You might have to wait roughly until page 117 for some action to happen, or for the first twists and turns to happen. Like, the very beginning is mostly just going through the story of the siblings and their grief and their process, and then things start to kick off. So if you're starting and you feel like it's a little bit slow paced, keep pushing, because it's going to get really interesting. In this story, you're gonna have your typical kind of horror elements and atmosphere from a big sort of abandoned, lifeless house after the parents are no longer there and only their belongings remain, especially Louise's mom's collection of dolls. So this book is going to be great for people that are scared of any kind of dolls or puppets, because there is mention of them in the book. And the mother not only had a collection, but she also had a little kind of like studio where she would create these dolls and puppets herself. What you can also expect is some horror tropes that were a lot of fun to see. I think tropes, if done right, there's nothing wrong with them to be tropey in a book. And it also had some interesting twists and turns throughout the story. We also have a really cool final showdown that it ends the book in the perfect kind of energy level with an action-packed last sequence. And now let's talk a little bit about the author, because I want to quickly mention some facts about Grady Hendrix. Grady Hendrix is an American writer, screenplay writer. He's a journalist, he's a public speaker, and I think he also has a podcast. He lives in Manhattan, and his novel Horror Store from 2014 is being turned into a film, and he's been asked to write it as well. So the last info that I have from IMDb is that it is in development at the moment. So I still hope that we will get this turned into a film. Apart from writing fiction, Grady Hendrix also has some published non-fiction books. One of them is Paperbacks from Hell, that also won a Bram Stoker Award, and I really love that book. It goes through horror books like Paperbacks from Hell, which is basically the vintage ones, the oldies but goodies, and I love to see all of those old covers, and it is a guide for people that also want to collect those books. He has a science fiction book called Occupy Space, and also a fantasy book called Satan Loves You. So there's a lot more to unpack when it comes to Grady Hendrix, but I feel like his popularity really did come from the book My Best Friend's Exorcism, that has been turned now into a film available on Amazon Prime. I feel like that is the one that really gave him a lot of popularity. At least that is the first book that I got in contact with and the first time that I heard his name. How to Sell a Haunted House is going to be the perfect book for people that already love Grady Hendrix and are looking forward to a more personal and serious novel. This is going to give you the Conjuring vibes, but also has like little sprinkles of Pet Sematary. Now, I do have to say that the book main kind of theme is grief, apart from everything that's going on and the horror and all of that. So I feel like if you're currently struggling or you're currently going through a loss, processing a loss, I don't really recommend you to pick up this book just right now, because it really dives deep into grief and loss and processing all of that. So it might not be the best for you right now. Alright, you guys, so this was my spoiler-free review of How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. I hope that you enjoyed this first video on the series of my book reviews, and let me know down below if there is any 2023 book release that you absolutely want me to check out and review for you guys. So I'll put it on my list. I hope that you really enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts down below, and I hope to see you all, as always, in our next coffee time. Bye!